Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel for a new installment of Lattes and Literature. So I know this series is by far not my most popular. I am adamant to keep it going as long as some of you are really enjoying it. And I feel like those of you who really love to read like I do are. So let me know in the comments down below if that is something that you would like to keep seeing in 2019. But for now, I have my coffee made. If you want to know what I'm drinking, it's the Cafe Venezia from Nespresso, which is the larger pods for the Virtua machine. I have some cat fur in my lip gloss. And it's really good. Are you being naughty? Yeah, you are. Naughty for the camera. Sorry for any distractions. Anyhow, I do really like this coffee. It's a little more floral than what I would normally go for. But like all the other Virtua pods, you get fantastic foam out of it, and it's got a really nice roasted flavor that I've been kind of craving in the mornings. So here it is in my duck mug, and let's get right into all of the books I have read because we have quite a few to get through in this video. I read a lot during my last trip, which was longer than most of the vacations I've taken over the last few years, and during that time on the cruise and everything, I just got so relaxed and really like into reading mode. And I also read quite a nice mix of books. So first of all, I want to tell you about the one that I actually haven't finished yet. So this is what I'm currently reading. This is Teresa Reve's La vie ne danse qu'un instant. It is unfortunately, I believe, not yet translated into English, but has been translated into a few other European languages. I will link this book as well as everything else I discuss in the info bar down below. But Teresa is actually a subscriber of mine and also ordered some Nouvelle Pearls for me, and through our conversations she mentioned that she was a novelist and kindly sent me this book and wrote me an absolutely beautiful note, which was so kind, and she's incredibly accomplished. This is a prize-winning book. It is historical fiction that is set in 1936 about a journalist, war correspondent really, called Alice Clifford. It's full of thrills and turns and really wonderful. If you can read French, I really recommend that you do read it in the native language that it was written in, because it is so beautifully written, fantastic vocabulary. I hadn't read a novel, like a beautifully written novel in French in quite a while, and so it was quite a treat for me and definitely got those juices flowing. So I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and so I feel confident saying that it's just like a really, really good story that I think those of you who may be francophone would really enjoy. So everything else I have fully read. Let's talk about the novels first, some of the lighter reads, because I know a lot of you guys are into those types of books as well. So everything else I read on my Kindle. Like every single other human who likes to watch romantic comedies, I saw Crazy Rich Asians and I loved it. Even if it was a terrible story, which it's not, it's a really cute movie that's very well acted with a wonderful cast. Even if all of it was terrible, just that scene in the jewelry store at the beginning where she purchases the Burmese pearl earrings would have made the whole movie for me. I am so in love with those earrings. So I watched the movie, and then of course I wanted to know what happens next, and it is a trilogy by Kevin Kwan. The movie is based on a series of books. And I made the mistake of skipping the first book, and as I read the second, China Rich Girlfriend, I realized that the books are different than the movie by a considerable amount, and so I'm actually going to go back and read the first book, Crazy Rich Asians, to kind of fill in those gaps, but I did finish the second one first. I know, huge mistake, so don't do what I did. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed China Rich Girlfriend. It was really good, really entertaining. There's a lot of Chinese expressions interspersed throughout. I lived and worked in Hong Kong, and so a lot of it kind of reminded me of that time, and it's just a really nice light comedic read with a lot of really juicy characters. So definitely like a nice, really good beach read if you haven't read it already. The Other Woman by Sandy Jones. I usually don't like to give really negative reviews, but it was just very frustrating because it's a thriller, you know, domestic thriller type book, Gone Girl kind of copycat book, and I'm normally all over those types of books and unashamedly love them, but there's something about The Other Woman where the protagonist is just so frustrating because she is in love with this man, and this situation of course becomes toxic because it's a domestic thriller, but her inability to really take action and take herself out of situations that are so clearly dangerous and toxic is incredibly frustrating, and it grows throughout the book, and I found her more and more unlikable and more one-dimensional and less believable as the book went on. Usually I find these domestic thriller type books sort of tend to start off weak, and then the suspense builds as the story goes on. As the character development sort of slowly happens, it starts to get better, even if the writing isn't super strong to begin with, given the genre. But this one was unusual in that I felt like the writing just got worse and weaker, and there is a twist at the end, but it was so it just wasn't surprising at all for me. So I know this one was on Reese's book list, and so a lot of people do like it, but it's a very strong thumbs down from me. A book that I didn't think that I would like quite as much as I did is One Day in December by Josie Silver. So I definitely would read other books by Josie Silver, and I had seen a lot of people commenting on Twitter and various, you know, book reading kind of places that it's a cute book, and I kind of had fairly low expectations given the storyline, which is essentially that a woman sees a man on a bus, falls in love with him at first sight without ever actually speaking to him, and then next thing she knows, you know, she's continuously thinking about him and looking for him because that moment passes and they don't get to meet. And it turns out that he's actually dating her best friend, and so it's everything that happens over a 10-year period. And I feel like that sort of storyline, as I've described it, sounds like it would be super weak and just be a bit of a bore and a drag, especially given that it takes place over like 10 years, and that every year is like a chapter basically, so there's not a ton of development that happens throughout each of those time periods. But nonetheless, I found all of the characters to be really delightful and likable, and that the character development was actually remarkably strong, and the protagonist, although she can be frustrating at times in that she stands in her own way so often, is so well intentioned and sweet and lovely that you just want to root for her. And the best way I can describe that book is that it's not so much about like quality writing as it is a true experience of reading a book as if it's a movie. So it very much is like you can really visualize things happening, and I think it would be like one of the easiest books to translate to the screen that I've ever read, because it really does read like a cute 1990s Notting Hill style rom-com, and I loved that about it. I really thought that was well done. Kind of crossing over, because I always have considered Liane Moriarty, although it is supposed to be, you know, juicy chick lit fiction, there's something about her writing that has a kind of human, existentialist kind of quality to it, where it makes you question human relationships, and the character development is so artful and beautiful in her books. You may have seen the series developed by Reese Witherspoon based on Big Little Lies, which, you know, doesn't do the books justice, but is still really excellent on its own. She has a new book, so 9 Perfect Strangers. As soon as it came out, it was already downloaded on the Kindle. I read it right away when I was in Hawaii. It was my first read that I went for, and it's just so good. So it's about 9 strangers who go on a wellness retreat, and it's kind of got a bit more of like a suspenseful thriller-like vibe than some of her other books. Like, I feel like she's kind of honed that skill by now. So she develops that more. The characters, I feel like, were so numerous that they weren't maybe as finely developed as they have been in some of her other books, where there's fewer characters, and so you get to see a bit more of each of them, and you kind of do feel like with 9 Perfect Strangers, they're all kind of vying for your attention and for you to sort of root for them, and sort of have them be the protagonists, and really isn't a standout character, I think, who does that. But nonetheless, I think the character development, the story, the suspense that she builds was as excellent as her other books, if not better, and I would highly recommend that if you've liked some of her other books or her TV series, that you go ahead and download and read it. Now going into a full-on thriller category that's not domestic fiction, it's like more of a pure kind of mystery, slightly noir kind of book. It's called Still Lives by Maria Hummel. It's definitely been on some like bestsellers, top recommended books of 2018 lists. I really like this book because I think the setting was really interesting. So it takes place in an art museum in LA, and the development of the setting, how you kind of situate yourself within that world, is really nicely honed. The character development is a lot weaker. I definitely didn't think like the protagonist was super well developed, like you really get to know her personality all that much. The character has a strong backstory of having previously not witnessed but experienced a murder in her journalistic career, and then she moves into a career in the art world, working for an art gallery, and there's a murder that happens, and you know, she's kind of becomes a suspect potentially and is surrounded by potential suspects, and it's all like very dark and creepy, with a strong twist at the end. So I would say it's a strong mystery. I just wouldn't say that the character development is super well done. The story relies on a lot of other elements of the setting, and the creepiness of the setting, and the actual works of art, and how dark they are to do that kind of development rather than the actual personality development of the characters. So overall, I would say it's maybe like a 7, but nonetheless like a really good read if you like a good thriller, dark, kind of slightly film noir-esque mystery novels. And then we move into 2 books about business. Growth IQ has a lot of case studies about huge multinational companies like Starbucks. So if you're not very familiar with those stories, I would say that it's quite a good sort of introduction to those stories and the pathways of those companies and some of their failures and successes. And the book does a good job of analyzing those and sort of drawing out some business lessons from them. That said, if you are familiar with those stories, have thought, you know, relatively critically about those business stories, I don't think that the book really has that much to offer. The way companies split up their different departments, sort of general primer on the corporate world, I think it's a good book for that. It's well written and clearly, you know, well researched piece. But if you're a small business like I am, I question how much you're really going to actually take from it, and be able to apply to your business. So if you have a career maybe in the corporate world working in marketing or business development for a large corporation, I could see it being a better read than for someone like me who is running it and developing and looking to scale a small business. More interesting, and I know this is not going to be for everybody, but I am a child of the 90s and I was exposed to a nice daily dose of Martha Stewart's good things growing up. So reading her business book, which is called The Martha Rules, which is definitely from a little bit of an egocentric point of view, she tells her business story, and it definitely, you know, it's very, like, it's a self-centered book. It's about her story. It does use some case studies and examples of other businesses, but I just loved it because she is one of the few people where if I met her, I really would fangirl in an embarrassing way, just because I think her show is so nostalgic to me. I loved it so much. I think it influenced me as an influencer. She's actually done a lot of interesting things throughout her life. If you're familiar only with, you know, her insider trading case, I think it's actually nice backtrack at her career and kind of offers a nice perspective on that, and still kind of owns up to some of the stuff that happened with her with the criminal trial and everything like that to some extent, although not to a great extent. I thought it was really interesting. It definitely underlined the importance of customer service and putting the customer first and building a business from that. And that really is where I came from with my channel as well. It was just the idea of sharing my perspective as, you know, a young working woman, a young professional, and sharing just beautiful aesthetic things that uplift my life and my style and things that I'm loving. And that really was where Nouvelle Pearl came from, and Nouvelle Apparel as well. And so I think it reminded me of a lot of things that I hadn't thought about for a while. And kind of on the heels of reading those two business books, I decided to redesign my classic stud earrings. And to the untrained eye, they would look exactly the same. They come in the same colors. They're 1 millimeter bigger, so it's a subtle difference. But I came at it from a true customer service point of view. So I had received a few emails throughout the years. I've had my business for 3 years now, saying that some customers were experiencing an allergy to the glue that I use. And so I redesigned the way that the stud fits into the pearl so that there is no actual glue exposure to your ear, because the glue goes inside the pearl, and there's a screw design to keep that in place now. As well as an enhanced, more solid backing so that you won't lose them, and they'll be a little bit more firm on the ear. And then I've just increased the price point by a few dollars so that I can go ahead and increase the quality of the pearl. It's a little bit bigger, so 1 millimeter bigger, and the luster is a lot higher, and just the quality of the pearl is higher as well. And so it's like the new improved version. I'm not going to take all new photos. I'm wearing them now and I've been loving them. And it's kind of this idea for me of like going back to basics and looking at what can I improve about what I'm already doing. So I've also decided to offer new pouches for my gold collection that have 2 dividers, are really high quality, and have a snap closure, little details like that. If you've ordered stud earrings over the last month or so, like pretty much in 2019, you've already been receiving these, but now I'm sort of making that public that it's a new improved version and increasing the price point just a little bit to reflect that increase in cost and quality. So I don't know, I think these are interesting things to think about, and reading books about business I don't think ever is going to revolutionize anything for anyone, but sometimes it can get those juices flowing, get you to kind of think about things that you wouldn't think about otherwise as you sort of tackle things that need to be tackled on a daily basis. It's often easy not to sort of look backwards at what you're already doing and re-examine that, but I think that's a really important lesson. So if any of you would like to try the new studs, I will include a little discount code down below. So I hope that you enjoyed this installment of Lattes and Literature. If you'd like to see my next installment, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!